sustainability, and we talk about being green, we need to go back and look at our ancestors. Our ancestors knew everything about being sustainable. They knew about wind, solar, and geothermal. My ancestors put up a windmill to pump water through to drink and cook with, and then through their cooling house that cooled the milk and the eggs, and then went up to the reservoir so at night you could take a hot shower. And we're trying to reinvent the wheel. The concepts are there. Now the technology that we have today is what we really need to implement, because back then if you were the last one in the shower, you get a cold shower. We have the technology now with solar and wind and geothermal that everybody can have a warm shower without using fossil fuel. Overhead view of the streetscape. Two buildings left in town. One of them is the Robinette building that was built in 1915 on the corner of a block, and everything around it was destroyed. It shows, though, that the building technique and style and construction withstood 240-mile-an-hour winds. We see a lot of great things out there in building materials now, but let's also implement some of the things that our ancestors taught us would last a lifetime. I just got back from a vacation visiting our foreign exchange student that we had several years ago from Germany, and went to Cologne and Bonn, and you look at them rebuilding after World War II, and it was amazing the things that I learned watching what they'd done for centuries over there that we're just now starting to think about. In 1943, Winston Churchill, after all the bombing of London, spoke to the House of Commons, and they were talking about the rebuilding process, and he said, "We shape our buildings, but afterwards the buildings shape us." So when we're building that building, we want that shape to be what will carry on through the next millennium and forward. We had to drive 30 miles or 45 miles for groceries. And when you take your business to another town, you're not only going to buy your groceries, you're probably going to eat out, you're probably going to go to Walmart, you're going to do this and this and this. That was all sales tax revenue that left our county. It was very critical that our Dillon's store, which is a division of Kroger, decided to rebuild, because we can keep those sales tax dollars at home and we can keep a business going. They were open less than a couple days. I lived 2 blocks from there. My wife said, "Hey, why don't you walk over?" Or she said, "Why don't you go over to the store? I need 2 items." I started to the garage to get my pickup out. And I go, no, it's just 2 blocks. You can surely walk 2 blocks. And an hour later, I got home and she said, "Where you been?" I said, "I went to the grocery store." It was a social event. It was a community event. We saw people there that maybe we hadn't seen for several weeks. And it was more than being able to buy subsistence food. It was food for the soul of seeing each other and cultivating those relationships with each other. Our John Deere dealership that was built back at a LEED Platinum level, certified, private enterprise. They also have an Endurance wind turbine, and there is a booth here today for Endurance. They are the dealers for the company, Endurance. And Greensburg is basically right now a living laboratory. You can see everything you want to do about wind, solar, ICF block construction, SIPS panel construction. But this is a tremendous asset for a major company to decide to rebuild back. The other building that was left was our county courthouse. Had some damage to it. Most of the windows were blown out, a chunk of the roof went off, so it was pretty well water inundated. But that had to be saved. Some community residents said, "Oh, just tear it down and build back a tin shed. We don't need a courthouse." Now I'm going to get on my political stump here, and it's really not about politics, though. Your city hall and your courthouses all over this United States are the bastion of democracy. This is where things happen. This is where you go to register to vote. This is where you go vote. This is where you go have your property appraised. This is where you go pay your taxes on property taxes. The point is, whatever we can do at the local level, we can make a difference. It doesn't come out of D.C. and it doesn't come out of Austin or Topeka. It's got to come from the local level. Finished product of the courthouse. Just some county buildings for fairgrounds and community buildings. The exhibition building was 9/11 firefighters formed an organization, and they build a project every year somewhere in the United States through volunteers. And a group from Greensburg joined them just a few weeks ago, and we went up into Iowa where that Boy Scout camp, you know, with the floods and everything up there, and helped them rebuild that. New York Says Thank You is the organization, and they were able to come out and help and assist with that. One of the first things that came back in our community was the churches. And that tells you the heart and the soul of our community. That tells you morals and values. That tells you it's about faith, family, and friends. It's not about disasters. So we've learned that you need to be resilient, determined, you need to be adaptive. And more than anything, you need to be innovative in what you're doing to make this a better place for all of us. Again, samples of homes, of ICF construction, of SIPS panels, all very traditional. Energy savings in a lot of these homes are 50 to 60% better than the ones they were living in. We as a community also got together and we needed a vision statement that we had to come together and say, this is us. And it's simply, we are blessed to have a unique opportunity to create a strong community devoted to family, fostering business, working together for future generations. One thing that also, a couple other things I'd like to share with you. Apostle Paul in Corinthians said, we are hard pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed. We have to keep that attitude. We might have been struck down, but we were not destroyed. And each one of us need to continue to uplift each other in the efforts we're making in renewable energies and being sustainable. We live in the most exciting time in history in the United States. I stand before you saying I'm proud to be American. And I stand before you today to say that's what all of us need to have a little more pride in is in our country. You all do, but there's some that need a lesson learned on that. But we have an ability, all of us, to make a difference right now in our future. And we can do it one individual at a time, one community at a time, one town at a time, and continue to uplift each other and move boldly into the future. Margaret Mead said, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that has. God bless you all and thank you. I've left a little time here because I would like to open to questions and answers. I'm not an expert by any means, but we have 10-15 minutes here. If there's any questions or comments, and I'll be around for a little bit afterwards too to visit with y'all.
There were two things that you hadn't mentioned in the original talk. On the street rebuilding, were you able to input to walking or sidewalks for pedestrian walking and bike lanes for people who might be interested in that?
Yes, and I'm sorry I didn't share that. In the Sustainable Master Plan, that is part of our plan, is the walking, quality of life issues with walking and biking. And so the school is on South Main, so we have a small lake out on the northwest corner of town, so we've designed a walking trail that will cross town, so if you only want to walk a mile, fine. If you want to walk 10 miles, fine. Or bikes. So yes, we are implementing those.
Okay. Yeah. Have you been able to implement a practical recycling program, or is it that's still in the works?
Well, I can just tell you that I'm going to announce to you all in less than a month we'll have our grand opening ribbon cutting of our new recycle center. So we'll have a place to go with all that. Yes, sir.
I have a question. You have an incorporated area, and I'm just interested in what do you? I'm sure there's always people who want to build on the outskirts and avoid some of your. How do you encourage